everybody, and welcome back to the Front Porch, your friendly neighborhood podcast. Today, I have the honor to be sitting here with Nick, close friend, great coworker. And what are we talking about today, Nick?
Well, I think you guys brought me on to talk about audio, right?
We did bring you to talk about audio. So one of the things that you might have noticed at the beginning of this video is that we actually used a Slate. For those of you who are wondering what the Slate is used for, Nick, why don't you give us a little insight as to what that's used for?
Oh, man. Put me on the spot here. So a Slate is used for syncing the audio and video for production, because a lot of times audio can be lost when you're filming a lot of data. Things can get lost, so it's a lot easier when you can sync it up. And yeah.
And a lot of times, too, we use different recording systems for it. And you can use different audio recording mechanisms that are going to just give you better sound quality rather than an internal camera. So, fun fact for the day. There you are. So, Nick, tell us a little bit about your audio journey, because obviously when I first met you in college, you were pretty heavy into more of the audio land when we were on sets, because every set I was on, you were always audio team, I was camera team. So give us a little bit of background on that knowledge.
Sure. So I started, I guess if I were to go way back to my musical beginnings, I started playing the drums in 5th grade.
Nice.
I was a percussionist, and I did that until right into the beginning of college. So that was probably the most important thing in my life. It wasn't like a side fun band thing. Like, that's all I did was I played the drums. And then in high school, that's when I started doing video editing. So that kind of took the front hold of just, I liked making videos.
Yeah.
And then in college, I found a way to kind of incorporate my love for music and editing in a way where I was able to focus on sound design and music, but also video is there's a rhythm to video too. So I found a way to kind of incorporate two things I really, really like together.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And what kind of classes were you taking?
We took everything from just audio production, which is basic, just, here's how to press record and here's the best practice for putting a mic in front of somebody, to sound design classes where you're learning how a soundscape is built in a movie, because a lot of times people might not realize it, that there's so much more than what meets the eye, I guess, or what meets the ear, you could say.
Okay.
So that was like super cool. And then we did the first on-set experiences. We had a summer film program, which I know you're familiar with, where we actually got to make a short film with the college. Mm-hmm. And that was really cool because I was able to do on-set audio with a team, and we were able to do all types of different setups, and I don't know, really cool experience.
Yeah. Shout out to Joe McCarger.
Yes, Joe McCarger.
Awesome professor that we had. This just randomly popped in my head, so this might throw you for another loop. Did you guys march in high school when you were doing the drums?
Oh yeah.
Like, because when I think of marching, I'm from the Holland, Zeeland area, so we have tulip time. And that was like the event. Like, the band's like, oh, we march in the tulip time period. And I'm like, what does he have to march? But you probably had football games, and
we did. So we did, what did we do? We did competitive marching band. So every year we would have not just drumline, but as a whole, we had the whole band, and we did like a performance, whatever the theme. One year we did like Carmen, we did like military themes, but
I was referencing the movie Drumline, but I get.
Every time I bring up drums, people are like, oh, it's like Drumline, right? I'm like, maybe not for me though. It wasn't like that for me. But the big event that we marched in was we did the Detroit Thanksgiving Day Parade. Yeah. Is that the Macy's Day Parade?
No. That's New York.
Okay, we didn't go to New York.
I'm sure each city has some sort of sponsored Thanksgiving Day Parade, but Detroit probably has some fancy name.
That one's horrendous though, because it's like 15 degrees outside, freezing rain, and you're walking a couple miles. You can't feel your hands carrying like a 45-pound set of drums,
hitting it with
and then the other
vibration of the stick just. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you catch the rim with your finger. Oh, man, good night. But the other end of the spectrum was I think it's like once every 4 years, we go to Disney.
Oh, nice.
And we get to march down Main Street. So that was a really cool experience.
Yeah.
Where that one's just really hot and you can't wait to take off all your gear.
Well, I was in orchestra, so I didn't have the luxury of marching. But so for the video then, as you were kind of referencing, just to all of your stuff through college to being on that short film, a lot of the times when we think of audio, especially to the common person, we just think of dialogue.
Sure.
What else do you classify into the world of film audio?
Sure. So the three main components for film audio would be dialogue, your sound effects, and your music. Sound effects can encompass everything from your someone closing a door and you hearing the sound of that action happening, but also the rustling of someone's clothes, which would be Foley, to ambient sound of, if you're outdoors, just a little rustle through the trees and stuff.
And for our viewers that do not know what Foley is, do you mind giving us a brief little description of what it is?
Sure. So Foley it's kind of an art in itself, where people watch along. There's a group of people that kind of sit in a room and they watch the movie after it's edited, and they try to fill in the sounds of actions we see on screen. So if someone's carrying a paper bag, they have paper in their hands. They're trying to emulate that sound. If someone's walking outside on a slab of concrete, they're putting on those shoes and they're matching their feet to make it sound like it's actually there, because you can't capture those sounds a lot of times while you're actually filming. The most important thing is capturing the dialogue. And when you have all those sound effects happening on set that kind of interfere with the dialogue. Yeah. So this is like the best approach to having the cleanest audio.
Yeah. And I've often heard too that like with Foley, a lot of the times it's effects that you wouldn't be able to find in a sound library, or they're just not something you can generate through computer automated sounds or whatever like that. So it's the way for them to capture that real like sound of your shirt, your stuff like that you wouldn't be able to pick up on set.
Yeah, and there's a lot of basic things like I mentioned, like a paper bag or someone's clothes rustling, but you can get really innovative with how you do things, where you might be needing to create the sound of a helicopter in some other like on some planet in an atmosphere that doesn't exist. Yeah. So they have to get innovative, or they'll take like, I don't know, a weed whacker and just start putting weird stuff in it and spinning it around to see what kind of sound it makes,
Absolutely. So now that you mentioned that, I've got 3 sound effects that are commonly known in the film world that I want to have you haven't seen these yet. I want you to try and guess what the sound effect was made out of. Does that sound all right? They're things you have definitely heard before. Okay. So the first one, you've seen Lord of the Rings, correct?
Yeah.
Well, this is an issue. Well, for those that are wondering, have you seen any scenes of the Ring Wraith? I believe that's how they're pronounced. I've only seen Lord of the Rings once, guys. Sorry. No. Well, Dane has, and Liberty has as well. And I'm sure Donnie doing audio has definitely seen it. But the sound used for that was actually from plastic red Solo cups and ping pong balls.
The sound of what?
The Ring Wraith, like their presence. It's just this kind of eerie, screechy kind of.
The Ring Wraiths?
Ring Wraiths. The bad people.
Yeah. Those are the enemies?
Yeah.
All right. I think
this is a whole other topic. I think you might have just
started something and I'm not going to hear the end of it.
This one, I know you've seen.
Okay.
The T-Rex, referring to the original Jurassic Park.
Oh, how they made those sounds?
Yeah, because obviously a dinosaur, you can't go record a dinosaur sound.
Sure.
So do you know what components were mixed together to make the sound of the T-Rex?
I might be wrong, but I could have swore
I have 3 of them down. Okay. There's 3 things.
I believe it was they took, like, was it reptiles or just any animal sounds, and they just pitched them down and slowed them down, right? Is that one of them? Or maybe?
Yeah, I have 3 animals.
Oh, 3 animals specifically. Yeah,
they were all slowed and modulated to make the sound. Do you have any guess on the animals?
Oh, man. I'd say a turtle.
Nope.
Oh, man. Do turtles make a sound? Oh, wait. Let me think.
You're on the right track with the reptile. Think bigger.
Can you make the sound for me real quick? So
I'll give you one.
Okay.
Alligator.
Okay. Crocodile?
No. we have. I'll give it the two.
Okay. Wait. A snake.
Nope. You're far off the track now. It was an elephant, a tiger, and an alligator.
Oh, and did they combine the three?
They combined the three of them, pitch modulate them, and slow them down, and that's the T-Rex. And it has still been the T-Rex sound, even in the newer movies. They didn't change it at all. It's the original from the.
But I'm not off though. It was slowed on animals.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what animals they were.
This one you should know.
Okay.
Ironman 3. They brought in some new sound design. So the Ironman suits, specifically when the legs are walking, that sound effect of the like metal.
The legs walking in Iron Man 3.
This one's a fun story.
Oh man.
I'll give you a little fun.
Can you give me like a hint?
I'm gonna push you in the right direction.
Okay.
The people, when they recorded this, went to a Toys R Us and recorded it in the aisle at Toys R Us.
Didn't Toys R Us close before
in Michigan? I think Michigan still has a couple of them.
Okay.
I'm giving you 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
It's hard. I wish I should have pulled up the sound so you could hear them. But
yeah, if I could hear it,
then you'd be like, oh, that's clearly it was RC cars.
RC cars.
Yeah, little remote control RC cars. They would just go back and forth through the aisles and just pitch modulate.
I thought you meant like the sound of like his feet hitting the ground.
Poor clarification on my end.
Yeah, I mean I would have nailed it if I could hear it. Yeah, I would have hit it.
I
no problem.
That. So with us, we obviously do a lot of video production. One of the biggest things for us is dialogue. Not specifically like scripted stuff. I mean, we do that, but also we do a lot of interviews. So what's the most practical way to capture that audio? That we capture it at least.
So for most things that we do, we'll have a boom that hangs above the person speaking. And that's probably the clearest way you can pick up someone's audio and get that natural reverb. But another way, a boom microphone for the audience.
Have you guys seen Star Wars?
A boom is a microphone that's actually kind of shaped like the one we're speaking into right now. It's a cylindrical tool that picks up audio very directionally. So you would have that pointed at the mouth, and that's going to pick up the clearest, most full audio that you can get. Another source is through the lavalier mic, which is kind of what it sounds like. It's a mic you clip onto someone's clothes or hide it in a way where it's closer to their mouth and it's picking up the audio in settings where you can't have a boom. So if the shot's a little too wide, you can't get that boom close enough to someone's face, I guess. You could just use one of those.
And often referred to as the news microphone. A lot of old news. I don't even know if they still do it in the news. I don't watch the news, but
I don't watch the news.
I don't. So when it comes to films, then what's the, I guess, when it comes to dialogue, how are they recording those? Because obviously when we're doing like a commercial shoot, it's really easy for us to set our talent down and say, here you go, here's your mic, speak into it. Whereas sound on set can often be pretty difficult. Do you have any examples from when you were on For the Birds? How are you miking up them, or situations that people wouldn't even realize?
Sure. So I guess for like interviews, a lot of times they're usually wearing business clothes, or really they're wearing more traditional clothes in general. Yeah. So it's really easy to clip them. A lot of times you don't even really necessarily need to hide them. But on set for a film, you can't see mics. So you kind of have to get a little more innovative with how you hook people up with stuff to make sure they're not seen. So if someone's just wearing a tank top, you have to strategically, place that along the strap of their shoulder and make sure you can't see the wire. Another thing is you can use moleskin, where you can use that so it kind of protects the mic and attach it to someone's skin or the clothes they're wearing underneath their clothes. We actually had a funny situation where we were one day filming in a really, really hot car garage. and it was the hottest day of the summer. Everybody's sweaty. We bring in this guy. He's a big guy.
SAG actor. He was a
SAG actor. Yes,
he was Mr. Big Guy for us.
Yes, and he was the shop owner, and we were having a problem with attaching the mic to him because he was a very hairy and sweaty guy. So the mic was getting like soaking wet, and the mole skin was getting.
It wasn't sticking.
It was not sticking.
And a lot of those shots too. If I remember, there was no way to boom those.
No. But yeah, you have to find interesting ways to mic people up, and if you aren't able, because in some situations you're not always able to get the clearest audio. Say you're filming in an uncontrolled set outside and there's cars going by and that's interfering with the dialogue. That's when you have to go into a place where you have to re-record that audio in post-production.
Otherwise known as
ADR. Which is automated dialogue replacement.
Thanks.
I believe so.
But in that situation too, they're just sitting, they're rewatching the visuals, and they just sit in the booth and re-record and try and match the tone. It's kind of almost like what they do with animation.
Yeah,
animation, they do the same thing, but this one you have a little bit. It'd be pretty spot on with ADR, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of artists, talent, they have it in their contract too, where they, after filming, 6 months down the road, they might have to come back and work through those lines again and try to hit that same inflection.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes with ADR too, the audio might be recorded clean on set, but maybe the inflection or the way that it was intended to be said really isn't resonating with the director or editor, so they have to come in and say it a slightly different way where it still matches. Really cool process. We got to do a little bit of that too.
So has there ever been a movie that you can think of that has had issues with dialogue? And I don't mean recording wise, but I'm going more even into the mix now.
Okay. I'd say the ones that stick into my mind the most, which are some of my favorite movies, are pretty much anything Christopher Nolan makes, from the Dark Knight series, Inception, Tenet, Dunkirk. All of those movies a lot of times have really grand action that's happening on the screen, and dialogue can just be unintelligible at times. But I guess that's a personal choice. The audio is recorded perfectly fine on set. He just chooses to make it harder to hear.
I have it listed as like, I think it was the sound editor from Whiplash often was trying to defend Nolan or something like that. I don't know, but he references sounds as like, a lot of the times we'll go into a theater and we'll expect to hear this like crystal clear, like, I don't know, if an action happens where an explosion or I don't know, some grand thing, we often expect it to be this crystal clear audio. Whereas like, if you think of it, even in real life, not often too many times where you hear something crystal clear. Like I can hear this buzz from the light behind me. And like in a movie, my mind would kind of like want it to be this crystal clear buzz, but I don't know.
It's another way to kind of tell the story. You have Matthew McConaughey shooting off into space, maybe to never return again, and the overwhelming sound of like flying to space, like that's very daunting. That's a big move. So like what he's saying, just commands or whatever, like that doesn't really matter all that much.
So then we'll bring us into sound effects.
Okay.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how sound effects are used in the mix? Sometimes, obviously, we talked briefly about Foley, so Foley would come into some of that sound effects. So, what do you want to fill us in on some sound effect knowledge?
So I guess there's two different ways there's multiple different ways sound effects can be used, but two main ones are synchronous and asynchronous sounds. I say that correctly. Where a synchronous sound would be someone's playing the piano and you hear the piano, right? Where an asynchronous sound would be a sound effect that's used to kind of sell the environment that they're in, or emphasize things that people are saying or doing, add a little more dramatic effect, even though it might not necessarily be, that action might not be seen. Yeah.
Do you know of any examples? I can think of one while you were just speaking. um, again, referencing for the birds, when we were doing the sound mix for that, I remember obviously the theme has to do with there's birds involved with it. And so we played off that. And the garage owner, when you were talking about him, there's when he's outside, there's this not distinctively, but you will hear some sounds of crows. And that was decided to be thrown in there to kind of just heighten the characteristics of that character, whereas other characters had different bird sounds that were often revealed throughout. So that was the one that first came to my mind.
I guess an example I can't think of a specific movie, but a good example that comes to my mind is, say you have like a married couple in a verbal argument, and it's like climactic scene in the movie. In the background, you might hear like ambulances going by, unrelated to like what's happening, but at the same time, it's very much really selling what's going on. Like it's a big deal. It's like an emergency. It's like, I don't know. It's another way to just sell the emotion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do you have any favorite sound effects that you like to listen to that you've heard in movies that stick out?
Favorite sound effects?
Do you know of the Wilhelm scream?
So that's the one. I guess that's the one that I get excited about when I hear in a movie or a show or anytime. I think even in like the Super Bowl recently, I think I heard it in a commercial. It's kind of, I feel like it's this unspoken thing that a lot of sound editors try to sneak in. Sometimes they do it really subtly, and other times it's not so subtle. You know, Star Wars, I think, was the origin of that, was it not? No, really.
Have you ever seen the clip of the origin? Have you seen the original clip? It's I forgot what the movie is called, but the character's name is something PT Wilhelm or something like that. But he actually is shot by an arrow and falls into the water. I recently watched this while we were going over some of these notes, but I had never knew. Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
He's crossing this river and he gets shot by a bow and arrow and just does the scream.
So was it then
from like the 50s, I think.
But would you agree then though that Star Wars kind of made that famous?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I wish I had the document in front of me. I was reading about it a little bit, but it was used in like 500 different medias as of 2020.
Wow.
And Star Wars has used it, I think, in every single episode that they've done. So fun little fact. Go look for it.
I wish, maybe Austin can play something right now.
Copyright. Nope. Just kidding.
That's probably, you can probably use that, right?
I could probably use that. So scores. How are scores used throughout films to kind of, I guess, where does score start? I guess if that's a good starting point. Do you have a composer writing a score for the film, or is it after the film is complete, or is it sometimes just vary based on the film?
So scores are interesting because you can. It really depends on the movie and the composer themselves. A lot of times, say someone busy like Hans Zimmer, he's got to score 50 movies this year or something like that. I don't know how many actually it's a score, but he's getting that allotted time, and he might be getting the movie later on. He might not even see the movie, but he is given kind of a direction, and then they work with the theme. They're like, say Darth Vader, John Williams, this is your character. Yeah. They have to create this theme for the character without really seeing it. And this would all happen after the movie's even shot. But then you have some artists, like one of my favorite is Ludwig Göransson. He was worked on Black Panther.
Won an Oscar.
He has won an Oscar, yes. Also, he's one of my favorite rappers, producer. Childish Gambino, Donald Glover. I don't know if you're familiar. They met on the set of Community, and he's produced like most of his music.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Mandalorian soundtrack, Boba Fett. Mandalorian is
that's
fantastic soundtrack. But
you showed me the video of him. I think it was for the Mandalorian. It was just him in his studio kind of dissecting what the sounds came from.
Yeah. So for Black Panther, he went to Africa and just hung out there for a month or two, and he just recorded just the native people performing music on their own instruments and kind of would use that as inspiration and sampling for what the soundtrack would end up being, which is really cool because he's doing that before the movie's even being filmed or while the movie's being filmed, but he doesn't know what's really happening. He just kind of has general ideas of, this person will have kind of a theme, this person will have a theme, this will be kind of like the overarching sound. Really cool approach.
Do scores often themselves, I think I'm trying to think of the best way to word this when it comes to emotion. How do we use audio in films to help with emotional scenes? Because obviously we'll watch like an actor and they can give a really compelling scene. Maybe they're upset or angry, but I feel like often it's the soundtrack or the score that really drives home the emotions. I guess I don't know where I'm going with that.
I was going to say, it sounds like you just kind of answered your own question.
But like also just like the fact that, scores can also just be used to enhance emotional scenes throughout movies, I guess, which is just interesting because oftentimes I think people go for the visuals, whereas like, hey, film is 50-50 because if you don't have the audio in there, big deal.
Yeah, and I've in my own personal projects, I've put the cut together, and I would just be like, man, I don't think this isn't doing what I want it to do. And then once you start adding those sound elements, you start adding your music in. That's when it really kind of takes its shape. Yeah, which I don't know if a lot of people really realize it because it might not be right in front of them, but it's happening, and it's just kind of happening in the background. Yeah,
no, for sure. Do you have favorite score from a movie or favorite scores? I did some research and some common themes or common movies that were listed as top scores of all time are Forrest Gump,
okay,
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Raiders of the Lost Ark. A lot of people reference The Empire Strikes Back, but I think they should just put Star Wars in general. But Jaws, Back to the Future, Dark Knight, Lord of the Rings, and Lion King.
Okay.
Those were the most common top 10 between all of them.
I've seen some of those movies. I'm not joking. I've seen just some. I don't watch a lot of movies.
You good, Liberty?
I'm not going to say which ones.
He has not seen Jaws. No, I'm just kidding.
That's probably the only one. Because I had to.
What are some of your favorites?
So I guess a more conventional.
A lot of these are older too. They're not even. I mean, Dark Knight's probably the most recent from that list.
Sure, Dark Knight's up there for me. Specifically, Dark Knight Rises. Anything with Bane, I really liked the. I think I watched an interview with Hans Zimmer of how he recorded that. Just really cool how he brought in like these choirs to do chants and would just bring in these like rooms full of drummers and just beat on the drums. Everybody just beat on the drums, like maybe 50 people. And it's just really cool how that kind of translates over to the video and just makes it a lot more intense. And just the way they use the motifs of some of the sounds throughout that movie. That's probably one of my favorites from your list. One of my favorites, though, which is kind of a little bit unconventional, would be Baby Driver. I know you're a fan of Baby Driver as well.
Good one.
That one's a little bit different because it's using songs that it's not a score that was made for the movie. It was a score using songs that already existed, but the film was written and cut and built completely around the soundtrack, which was just kind of a different way, kind of going back to the origin of, audio in video, like in the late 1920s. Sound was it was so fresh and new, and it was such an important aspect of video to the point where a sound editor could just call cut at any point if something wasn't working, because they had to record them at the exact same time. Yeah. From the instruments being played to if a horse is walking the coconuts. I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen that gag before. But everything had to happen. And then as advancements in technology happened, it just wasn't as important, I guess. You could just do it all in post. As long as you got clean dialogue, you could do it all in post. All that mattered was videos. I feel like video kept getting pushed in a way where it needed to progress, but audio kind of took a back seat to a lot of people.
Yeah. And it's why they're often the joke on set too. Whereas like, oh, we got to hold for sound. Like nobody wants to give them the respect, but in the reality, they're half the movie, honestly. Without it, your movie's not good.
Exactly. And I think a movie like Baby Driver really brought that to the forefront because it found a way to, so how they actually filmed it was not necessarily like a musical in a way, but a lot of the actions that happened on the screen was to the rhythm of the music. And they had an editor on set that was monitoring the music and the actions. And then he was in real time cutting that video, and they wouldn't move on till they made sure that all matched up, which was really cool. So it kind of paid homage to how it used to be, you know?
Yeah. Whiplash?
Whiplash.
Do you like Whiplash?
I really like Whiplash. Yes. I had to burn CDs in my old car, and I just would have the Whiplash soundtrack on a CD, and I would just listen to that on loop.
Nice.
Because yes, I did a little jazz drumming. I'm a little familiar with the movie. This Whiplash is a little more dramatic than what I experienced, but
you didn't have anything thrown at you.
No, nothing. Well, no.
I'm just looking through the Oscars. I wrote down some of the Oscar winners from the past couple of years. So Soul last year was
it's a good movie.
Score.
Good sound.
Joker.
Sure.
Black Panther. Obviously, we mentioned Shape of Water, La La Land, Hateful Eight, Social Network, and then I went way back and found Schindler's List because I have not seen that movie, and I have been in trouble because I have not seen that movie, but I've heard the score and it's great. So
me too.
Yeah. Here's a fun fact for you, I guess, that we can play off of. Do you know who did the score for The Lion King?
Am I going to be in trouble if I don't know the answer?
No, it was news. Like, I mean, I grew up with that movie, and obviously when I'm younger, I'm not worrying about, no, don't say it. I'm not worrying about the score.
I don't think I've seen
but it surprised me when I found out who did the score. You got any guesses?
I don't think I've seen The Lion King.
Hans Zimmer.
Oh, okay.
You haven't seen The Lion King?
I don't think so.
Oh, my. People, we were in trouble. No, I just thought it was funny because I feel like a lot of it, maybe it's just because of my generation and the way I was raised, but like Hans to me was always a like more recent composer. And for me to be like, wait, he did Lion King? Kind of like those random things you find like Josh. Is it Josh or Josh?
Josh
Whedon. It's no H, right? Yeah. Did you know he was a part of Toy Story?
I did not know that. No.
Yeah.
What did he do?
He was a script. Yeah. But like just all those weird little connections that I would have never put Hans Zimmer into the Lion King soundtrack. But now that I know that, I hear it, I'm like, oh,
that's Hans. That's
Hans.
My guy Hans.
So what's the most important, or what's the biggest takeaway for you when it comes to audio in our productions? It's like a generic question. It's a terrible question. But
you want to re-ask that?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of like a good way to wrap things up. So obviously sound is very important. And I think we deal with all three of the big components every time we go out on a video. So what's the biggest takeaway for people who may not know anything about sound to just get from this podcast episode?
I guess just next time you sit down and watch a movie or watch a video, just, I don't want to say close your eyes, but just try to focus on what you're listening to. You'll notice things that you've never noticed that kind of made the story feel more complete and you didn't even realize it. So I guess just challenge yourself to just watch a movie, listen closely, and you'll really realize how much work can be put into a soundtrack and really how much it can add to the music or add to the emotion of the film or just the story itself. Or do the inverse, watch a movie without the sound, and you'll see how much the sound really does for the movie. Yeah.
I even just thinking about that, I was just quickly thinking of the stories I've heard of Jaws. Just the soundtrack would put fear in people that they wouldn't actually want to go like to the ocean or anything for a while. And like for me, knowing how old Jaws is, and at the time, like it's really easy for me to put a disconnect and be like, it's a movie. But at the time when that movie came out, like people were actually scared, and like John Williams' score really actually put the fear in people of like shark attacks.
And it's just a simple half step up on the piano. It's one key, then a half step up, and going back and forth. That's all it is, but it just made millions.
It made millions. Scared to go in the water.
Yeah.
Well, if anything, this is our plea for you guys to fix your audio setup at home and get some better audio speakers, surround sound, whatever, because audio is just as important as that 60-inch TV that you have that's 4K and HDR. So keep that in mind next time you go to Best Buy. Nick, thank you for not having us. Thank you for being on the podcast, man, and enlightening us with some of your audio knowledge. And we look forward to the next couple podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe, like, do all those things. And thank you very much, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Now get off the porch.
These chairs don't slide very well.